Hello Internet, I'm the Ugly Couch Gamer, and welcome to Flashdance. Yep, Get Girl Battle Rainbow seems like a pretty alright game. Solid gameplay, great visuals, and a rocking soundtrack all says to me that Get Girl Battle Rainbow is a pretty decent game for something that's on the internet for free. Although, now that I mention it, there is something rather familiar about it. The game is Mega Man. Recall the elements that make Mega Man great. The wonderful platforming segments, challenging boss battles, Mega Man's iconic Buster Cannon. You see my point? Even one of the actual tags for Get Girl is Mega Man. Come to think of it, the title Get Girl and Mega Man are incredibly similar. It's clear that Get Girl is Mega Man with a makeover, but the question still stands. Is Get Girl Battle Rainbow a game worth playing? By taking a good look at the story and the gameplay, while mentioning the visuals and the sound, we'll try to determine just this question. So without further ado, let's take a look at Get Girl Battle Rainbow. The game opens with computer commands that show the user was attempting to download the greatest game in the world. That is, until a computer virus named Nil is released. Whoa. So you're saying the greatest game in the world had a virus, so the player has to play a less subpar game? Sounds like the plot to a Tenacious D song.
This is the greatest and best song in the world. This is not the greatest song in the world.
Get Girl is then sent out by the computer to eliminate the virus, but fails in this task, and as a result, loses all of her abilities. Sounds to me like Get Girl is inspired by Avast. So it is the job of the player to control Get Girl and get her powers back from the bosses at the end of each stage. Oh, sweet, sexy liberty? Now off to the internets I go. Sweet, sexy liberty. Since when was it okay to sexualize non-sexual things?
On the sea, somewhere waiting for me.
Good point. The gameplay of Get Girl consists of platforming and boss battles, both of which are very Mega Man-esque. Each stage begins with a new platform mechanic that is reintroduced to ridiculously difficult proportions. In this stage, the platforming mechanic is a trampoline ball that bounces you up into the air. The difficulty relies on the fact that the player has fairly little control of where and how high they are bounced, which means the ball is not entirely reliant and can very much screw you over. While I'm not a big fan of crippling the player's controls to add difficulty to a game, I guess it's alright, because the bouncy ball obstacle course is fairly short and easy to navigate. However, what really bitters the experience is towards the end of the level, you must go through this same bouncing obstacle course again. Only this time there are enemies that shoot projectiles, making the platforming harder and inadvertently more annoying. But you know, now that I think about it, this trend of simply adding enemies to a platforming section is used constantly. One stage that I particularly hate involves this dude. Entirely agile and requires several hits to defeat, these butterflies of doom do not leave you alone and constantly hit for a large fraction of your health bar until you are able to dispose of them. Not to mention, they always seem to have the talent to knock you off your platform into a bottomless pit, resulting in an instant death. Take this part for example. You have to use the bouncy ball to elevate yourself to a moving platform that is vertical. There are two problems with this. First, to activate the platform's movement, you have to land right on top. Sounds too easy for you? Well, actually, I lied. In reality, you have to slide on the right side of the platform and then land on top of it. What's that? You're liking the original version better? Well, tough tits! And second, there's a butterfly of death right there to annoy the crap out of you. This part took me forever because you have to kill the butterfly while controlling your bouncing on the ball. But even if you kill it, the butterfly's respawn place goes off screen and back every time you bounce, which means even if you kill this bipolar butterfly, he will immediately come back. This situation really sums up the platforming for me. The game's difficulty feels really cheap and almost feels like the game was not made for me to win. I think this definitely has to do with the developer adding a lot of enemies in platform heavy areas, which raises these areas' difficulty. While this makes up for the rather simplistic platforming, it also makes the game feel a little unfair. This is commonly called artificially raising the difficulty. Simply adding distractions is not a good method of creating difficulty in your game. What you are really doing is simply distracting the player away from your platforming by forcing him to partially focus upon something else, such as, in this case, avoiding enemies. This means the player is unable to put in a complete effort into this puzzle-solving element. And I know some of you are going to be completely against this, but let me ask you one question. Would you be okay with adding a distracting element in another kind of puzzle, such as a Rubik's Cube?
Yeah, there's a reason why nobody's heard of these other two.
Or let's take a look at, I don't know, how about the platformer that directly inspired Get Girl? It's my experience that while Mega Man uses artificial difficulty from time to time, the game never makes a habit out of it. So to sum up, while there's nothing wrong with adding a little bit of artificial difficulty in a game, the more you add, the more the game feels unfair. And Get Girl relies a lot upon artificial difficulty in its platforming. The boss battles are also hard, but not as hard as the platform. Like the Robot Masters of Mega Man, Get Girl's bosses are really difficult at first. But then, once you learn their attacks and acquire many of their other Robot Masters' weapons, the bosses become easier. I was actually really impressed by them. The AI is really sophisticated, because the bosses track the player's movements and attack accordingly. In fact, their finesse kinda reminded me of the AI of Shadow Link from Ocarina of Time, who is infamous for analyzing the fighting style of the player, and then using this information to his advantage. While I doubt the AI in Get Girl is this smart, the boss's abilities to determine where the player is and adjust their attack accordingly is still rather impressive. Real quickly, the visuals are pretty good for a 2D platforming game. Their 16-bit design is meant to pay homage to a system from so long ago. The sounds and music are amazing too. So, you're probably wondering whether this game is worth your time. And if I had to say, I'd say it's definitely worth a play. The story was enough to create motivation in the game, the weapons were unique, the boss battles were challenging, and the art and music were amazing. While I have issues with its artificial difficulty in the platforming segments, it certainly creates a great challenge for the most persistent players. My concern is that this will deter just about everyone else from finishing the game. But other than this, all the other elements seem to be just fine. This has been the Ugly Couch Gamer. If only I had some upbeat music to play me off. That would be nicely.